sharp suits, fat beats and fast moves. Ladies and gentlemen, George Michael.
In essence, you've had 2 best-of albums in 12 months. That's a massive achievement. Did you ever think that, wow, that's going to be possible?
Well, in all honesty, the best-of Wham album that came out last year was kind of I contributed a little to it because... I'm very sorry. It's the wine.
When you look back or listen to some of that stuff now, do you cringe or...
The Wham thing, there's only a couple of things. I didn't include the one thing that really made me cringe, which was Bad Boys, which always had been the Wham record that I hated.
Yeah.
So I didn't include that, even though many people tried to talk me out of it. I said, no, I can't include it. It's called the best of. I want it to be the best of, not the best, not all of, you know, just the best of.
Yeah.
So, but no, I'm not embarrassed by it. I'm embarrassed as hell about the videos. Who wouldn't be, you know? What sane person wouldn't be? What sane pop star that started their career in the early 80s is not mortally embarrassed to look at themselves in their early 80s incarnation? If I had disappeared at the end of Wham, there'd be very few showings of Wham videos on the television. I wouldn't have to explain away the Dayglow gloves every 5 minutes, you know?
The shuttlecocks, that really happened to
They
them when
weren't
you go
in
down
a
the
bit.
trousers?
The thing is, that was a joke. That was a joke. I mean, we did... Andrew and I were so in our own little world when we were first touring. We were totally off on our own little thing. We thought we were hysterical, and everyone else just thought we were complete wankers. Part of it, well, at one point we decided to start trying to play badminton on stage. Right? I don't know why, but I think it must have been Andrew's idea. It can't have been mine. Please say it wasn't mine. You couldn't see, of course, because there was a spotlight on you and a spotlight on Andrew at the time, and we did this for one night. We tried it, and we were going to play badminton and then knock it out into the audience. But of course we couldn't see the badminton because it would just hit the spotlights, and everywhere in between you couldn't see where it was. So we gave up on that after the first night. We thought we could still do something funny, and they were all going mental for us to obviously deliver these shuttlecocks. So I don't know who did it first, but someone stuck one down their shorts, feeler shorts. And it became legendary because it was so fucking awful.
Was that one of your highlights, do you think, the Wham final? I mean, there have been many in your life, but would you put it up there with some of the others?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would say that was one of the best couple of hours I've ever had, I would say, yeah. It's an incredible day.
What was it like going from being a band member to a solo artist?
Not difficult in any aspect other than the shifting of attention, the soul attention, which is obviously what I wanted musically. But I think it was difficult, and it became, and as I said, I think probably the most difficult part was touring on my own. That I found very different.
You said that nothing happens when you tour.
Yeah, it's true. Nothing really happens. Or you think everything looks like it's happening, but really you're doing exactly the same thing all over the world, and you're not meeting people in any real way. Your emotional life is put on ice. It looks very, very exciting from the outside, but actually in the middle of the experience, it's nothing like that at all. It's actually a very tedious and lonely process. Well, for some, myself being one.
So what's the answer? How do we get to hear George Michael, see George Michael, but not have you pulling your hair out?
I guess the answer is for me to try and involve myself in various live events, which tend to be the only way you can do that, really, is to get up and sing with someone else's band and stuff like that. I think I'm going to try and do a bit of that, to maybe do a few live things next year in that kind of context around the world to compensate a little for the fact that the touring isn't happening right now.
That's something you like, isn't it? Covering other people's songs, and at times you've thought, I'm kind of bored with playing my own music.
I'm always bored with playing my own music. No, not really. I don't know, I just think it's more fun to get up with a group of musicians you never worked with and just do something a bit more kind of off the cuff, When I'm doing my own, when I'm working on my own live stuff, it's always, maybe because I'm the producer as well as the writer, I'm always such a perfectionist about it, and I find it really hard to deal with the kind of warts and all thing that live performance is. I'm too much of a perfectionist, you know. And in big arenas, and you know, it's very difficult to keep the music at the standard that I like. That was why I enjoyed. I did an Unplugged a couple of years ago, and I enjoyed that so much because it was really small. I could hear everything I was doing, you know, and it really felt like making music. When you travel halfway across the world, or when you travel to any country, it really seems stupid to especially as touring for me is really a matter of responsibility and duty, it's not a matter of pleasure. So if I was going to do that, why go all that way and then only play to a limited number of people? I would have to play in arenas, and if you play in arenas, you can't strip it right back. These are all the kind of dilemmas that you have as a very successful artist, is that you constantly, there are certain, you know, whether I like it or not, there are certain things I just can't do without upsetting a lot of people. So I don't know, I think it would probably still be a fair-sized show, or I'll just wait until there's so little interest in me that I can play to 200 people at a time, you know? But I might be fairly grey by then.
Why do you think there's been such a huge fascination about your sexuality then? I mean, you're a guy that obviously writes about it a lot, but...
Two reasons, I think. I think the two reasons that people have gone on and on about my sexuality. One is that I'm one of those people that, you know, I'm not butch enough for people not to start saying it immediately that I become attractive to women. In other words, you know, the first thing, you know, when you've got, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about film stars, pop stars, the minute loads of women are after a guy, every guy's like, oh, he's gay. You know, so there's that little bit. But I think because I'm so, my sexuality is obviously ambiguous, not just from the ways that I looked and have looked over 15 years, but my voice and what I sing and the way I sing it. You know, I'm not Bruce Springsteen. You know, it's quite obvious. If I were obviously gay, it would never have been a huge issue. You know, if I was totally obviously gay and I was, the subject matter of what I wrote was obviously gay, and I wasn't attractive to women, if I was not attractive to anyone, no one would care. You know, I'm not going to mention who the unattractive gay people are, but there are some fairly unattractive gay people that everyone knows is gay, but no one really cares. You know, it's all about people's own, you know, vision, the way people look at their own sexuality, the way they project it onto other people. You know, the main things, though, I thought, well, one, because I was kind of a bit camp anyway, and two, just because I tried so hard to retain my privacy, you know.
What did it feel like to come out? Was it a total sense of relief? Are you a much happier person now?
Well, it wasn't, you see. It wasn't a coming out to me. My coming out was years and years ago. I came out to my family and friends. To me, that's coming out. Coming out to the man on the street is not coming out, you know. Getting the occasional... What have been the differences for me since I came out publicly? I've signed a few more autographs. I've had a few people calling me you know, queer, whatever, this or that on the street. Your occasional person, actually, they don't do it on the street. They do it when they're driving past very fast. But other than that, it hasn't really changed anything at all. My life changed 8 or 9 years ago when I first fell in love with a man, and that was to me a huge relief. Telling my family, my friends, you know, it was my first real relationship, and therefore I was very proud of it. Made me very happy that I'd found somebody. So that was the life-changing time for me. To call, you know, coming out in the way that or being dragged out in the way that I have recently, to call that a relief, it's just not that important to me.
What do you think George has done for your fan base? I mean, how are they thinking now? You've gone from being a guy who was a babe magnet to a guy now who's a bloke magnet.
A bloke magnet. I think I've been a babe and bloke magnet for quite a while, actually, for some inexplicable reason. I don't actually think my fans are reacting in any way differently at all. I'm sure some people are disappointed. I think anyone who was genuinely listening to what I was doing or really had any more than a passing interest in me worked it out ages ago, because I tried to make it fairly clear in every way I could, other than saying it to the press, you know. You don't write a whole album about loss and dedicate it to your ex-boyfriend, or, you know, your late boyfriend, without knowing that people are going to pick up on it. I kind of liked the fact that I thought most people knew without me having dealt directly with it via, you know, the Sun or the Mirror or whatever. I liked that idea. But similarly, I like the idea that people now know that I'm gay, and they also know I have absolutely no problem with it. You know, you don't wear a beard like this for a start. You know, the beard in itself has created all kinds of speculation over the years. I mean, it's very hard to trust people when you're in the public eye the whole time and you're constantly drawn into, you know, the circus. It's difficult, but as I've become older and more confident, I trust my intuition more than I did, and I don't have any problem trusting people. I know if they're going to get that far, then you know, if I can allow them to go that far, they're the type of person that's going to come this close. You know, I don't have to push people away. I can kind of spot it like that. The whole physical aspect of my career, I always still feel that if anyone really saw a real picture of me, if they got not just the angle I want to give them and all this, that they would still fall apart.
You used to think there was an element of you that someday everyone was going to wake up to, and that everything would be taken away. The bottom would just fall out of your world.
I think that's the feeling that almost every celebrity that I've actually talked to about this subject has come up with the same line. You know, you just feel one day everyone's going to work out that you're a fraud. In other respects, I don't have that feeling at all. I feel completely at ease that there are no, you know, the only thing I still, deep down, I'm afraid of being found out for is ugly. And I know that that's not true either. I just know that's how I feel. So, no, I don't have those fears at all. I don't think anyone's capable of pulling the bottom out of my world anymore.
What do you see when you look in the mirror now?
I see myself getting older. And luckily, I don't really have a problem with that. Because if I had a problem with getting older on top of having a problem with the way I look anyway, then I'd be in real trouble. I see a more complete person, someone's a lot more honest with himself, with other people, much less afraid. You know, and that's nice. I'm glad about that. I'm glad about that, because I was very afraid for many years of all kinds of things. I see someone a lot more complete than the person I used to see. And that's not a recent thing. It's certainly got nothing to do with getting arrested. That doesn't do it for me.
You've got a great sense of humour, haven't you? I mean, that's something which maybe...
It's not something that's generally applied to conversations about me.
Why is that, do you think?
Because I've not particularly wanted to share it with people.
Yeah. I mean,
and I've had no problem with people thinking that I'm not, that I don't have a sense of humour. But I mean, I suppose recent events have actually made it quite easy for me to show that I have, which is not a bad thing. But I had no problem with people thinking I was miserable. It just made people pleasantly surprised when they met me. They'd say, "Oh, you're quite funny," or "You're not as, you know, you're nowhere near as sour as we expected."
You've made it fairly apparent that the personal George Michael is very different to the public George Michael.
Well, kind of mixed up together now, aren't they?
Do you think now that they've actually come together? Have you come the full circle as a person? And
I don't know if they've come together. I think you know, getting arrested and making the subsequent video and track have, or maybe me needing to turn this, what should normally be a negative situation, into a positive, as it has involved me showing my sense of humour. So I guess they're more mixed. They're closer now because, one, people know my sexuality without question, and two, I've tried to stay kind of fairly funny about it. So I guess people have a closer, when I say they're mixed up together, the misconceptions that were there before aren't really there anymore. So I still like to think that there are I'd still like to think I've managed to hold some stuff back for my own enjoyment.
George, you've sung a lot about freedom, with Wham's freedom, your own.
More I realised that, you know, that whole... I mean, I had a pretty strict upbringing, and I think a lot of my decision-making is based upon that kind of need to have total autonomy. And I think I realise now that I resented very much not having freedom as a child. That's probably why it's surfaced in so many songs, but I think everything about all the major turning points in my career have been about people or just the concept of something that you have to do. And if I can find a way not to do what I have to do and do it differently, then I always will. I can live with my own mistakes. I can live with problems if they're of my own doing. I'll take the consequences and not accuse other people of being the problem. But if I did not get the chance to make the decision, if something goes wrong because someone else has told me what to do, I can't live with that. I can't deal with that. I need to be in full control. It's just total. That's one of the things that I will never lose. And it hasn't actually hurt me. It's maybe taken me down some odd paths, but I absolutely, it's part of my character, and it's not part of my character that I have any real desire to change, because as long as I can have my freedom without hurting others, then I'm entitled to it.
Hey, what did you think of Robbie Williams' version of Freedom?
Oh, it was pretty good, actually. He didn't let me know until the night before. He called me up the night before and said, oh, by the way, I don't know if he thought I was going to try and stop it or something, but he called me up the night before to tell me that he was doing a press conference and that they were announcing that the release of his new single, which is a cover of my record, and I had no idea. My first reaction was actually a fear for him, because I really like Robbie, and I thought, oh, he'll get ripped apart and it'll be terrible. But it wasn't actually a terrible version. It was really quite an okay version, so I was just flattered.
You've had some fun with the video, haven't you, with Outside? There's a lot of...
Oh, yeah.
A lot of gagging going on there.
Absolutely. But there had to be, didn't there?
Take us through some of the images and some of the lyrics in the song.
It's about the fact that you know, I got arrested in a public place, which, you know, public depends how you want, what you want to call public. Of course it was a public place, it was a stupid thing to do, but there was nobody around. Regardless of what the police arrest report said, there was absolutely nobody else around. And so really what you're talking about is what I thought was a private situation, right? And ultimately, you're still just talking about sex. And sex is sex, whether it's in the middle of a park or in a bedroom or on a table or whatever. You know, it was really, I suppose, just drawing attention to that immediately. It was just saying, well, look, you know, this is really about where it happened, not what happened.
Are you obsessed with sex, do you think?
No more than any healthy human being. Am I obsessed with it? No. No, I don't think so. I have a very healthy appetite for it, but I wouldn't call it obsessed.
Obviously, the judge thought differently because he's given you some sex therapy.
For God's sake. For God's sake, the judge, and he's going to throw me in jail next time. You know, homophobia, there's no other word for it. Homophobia and poncing about in front of the world's cameras is what I call it, and making sure that, you know, I mean, he was pissed with me because I didn't turn up at that courtroom. I had no legal obligation to turn up at that courtroom, but he wanted me there. It's quite obvious. He wanted his 5 minutes on American television, you know, worldwide television for that matter. So he made his little speech and he gave me double the penalty that people normally get in a similar situation. It was all total rubbish. Good. I never masturbate anymore without calling my lawyer. That was it. You know, revenge with humour involved is always a good thing.
Is it kind of like an up yours, if you like?
Well, it's an up yours, but it's not just it's an up yours to various people, but ultimately it's an up yours to the whole concept that because I'm famous, or regardless of whether I'm famous, that I should somehow see having gay sex as some kind of ailment, you know, and shameful thing. And I'm not like, you know, a politician or anyone who really. I'm not even an actor. Actors have a hard time with it because ultimately people have to believe in who they're portraying. So to be a gay actor is difficult. To be a gay politician is extremely difficult. To be a gay pop star is pretty kind of, who cares, really?
That's pretty brave, though, George. I mean, it must have taken a lot of intestinal fortitude to get up there and say, yep, that's what happened, yep, I did that, and yes, I am.
I think that takes much less bravery than not bravery, no. It doesn't seem brave to me because it was completely obvious to me that's what I had to do, but I know for a fact that it would have been much, much more difficult and much more humiliating and wrong just to sit back and let people carry on with their own misconceptions, you know, and to just let the press have a field day. And I have to say, the day after I did that interview with CNN, they just disappeared because the game was gone. You know, the game was over.
Embarrassing arrest in a Los Angeles public toilet this week. It's all out in the open.
The truth is, I put myself in an extremely stupid and vulnerable position, especially because I'm in the privileged position that I am. Some of the kick was the fact that I might get found out. You know, deep down, I truly believed that, and well, here I am, I got found out. I don't suppose it would be that exciting anymore. They really thought, because I was fighting so hard for my privacy all these years, that I would stay that way. Whereas it was perfectly obvious to me that the issue was not my sexuality, it was the privacy. Once that was gone, it was gone. To have sat back and let people talk about that incident as though it was some huge incident in my life, and as though, you know, really I was a poor, sad, lonely homosexual with nowhere to go but public places, as opposed to someone who really just couldn't resist a free lunch, it would have been criminal, really. I would have had to live for that for the rest of my life. My dignity or my pride is all about how I feel, not how I feel when I walk down the street and looking at people's perception of me. I could deal with them thinking I was closeted. I could just about deal with that. I knew it wasn't about that. I knew it was about privacy. I couldn't deal with them thinking that I was sad and lonely. So I had to go out there and say, look, I have a partner, I'm not on my own, I'm actually pretty happy as a gay man, I just made a stupid mistake.
Just talking about the record company contractual obligations, to quote some Monty Python, do you feel like your life has been littered with it?
Oh yeah, there's been lots of litigation. Not really. I just think it's just a part to do well. A lot of people would be thinking, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're doing interviews right now to promote a piece of Sony product. But as far as I'm concerned, it's not a piece of Sony product. It's my work, you know. And my work, I'm very proud of 14 years worth of work, and I'm perfectly, prepared to get behind it.
If your music has become the soundtrack to some people's lives, what would be George Michael's soundtrack, do you think? The soundtrack to your life?
It would be a compilation. It wouldn't be, I guess, it would have to be a compilation album, and it would comprise of Elton, Queen, Stevie Wonder, and loads of disco records. And then, I guess it would, then my own music would, then at the point where I started making my own music, that became the soundtrack, I guess. I'm not saying that I listened to my music the whole time, which I do, actually, but I guess that would have to be it. I've written so personally for so long that I don't see how anything else could be the soundtrack to my life.
Hey, it's fantastic to have some new music back from you.
It's fantastic to be making some.
And what's next?
What's next is a bit of a rest, and then planning for the next solo album, the next full album, which I think has got to be something totally different. It's time to change something, to move things about. So I don't know what it'll be, but it'll be different, whatever it is.
George Michael goes hardcore?
Oh no, not that different. I'm not gonna have an early midlife crisis. But there is, you know, there's another dance album in me, the one I can get away with before I get too old. And that's probably going to be the next George Michael. It'll be very up. Unless something else disastrous happens between now and then.
I doubt that.
I doubt it, I hope not.